Good afternoon. I am Tina Tasaka with Cannabis X America. We are at the Cannabis Banking Symposium in Bernalillo, New Mexico at the Santa Ana Star Casino.
Yes, great times.
And I am here with Jennifer. She is the Cannabis Cash Queen. What does everybody think about that?
Oh my goodness.
Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you so much for having me.
The Cannabis Cash Queen. I want a name like that.
You know, I was anointed with that name, or crowned that, if you will. It happened organically, and when you create your brand in the industry, it's like, what does that look like? You have a professional brand, right, and the brand you represent and the company you represent, but who you are as a personal brand in the industry. I was doing a podcast, and at the end of the podcast, she was like, girl, you were just like the Cannabis Cash Queen. And in that moment, the time stopped, the bells went off, the warm and fuzzies happened. And I was like, holy macaroni. I went and I got the URL, all the social handles. I locked that stuff down. And so here I am. That was the moment that I was, what is the word when the queen and king are, coronation. That was my coronation day.
Okay. You were anointed. Anointed. And I think the Cannabis Cash Queen is in Cannatech magazine this month. Cannabis Tech magazine.
Yes, I am.
I think that the Canna Cash Queen actually has a full page ad in the Cannabis Tech magazine this month.
Yes.
So everybody better check it out. Mm-hmm. And we will put it on this video too, so everybody can get a glimpse of Cannabis Cash Queen.
Yes. Yeah, it's for my Cannabis Cash Consultants, and that's the name of the company.
Okay.
And so it was the first time I'd ever done any sort of media like that, or promoting of the brand. Everything to this point has been word of mouth. And so I took the leap to invest in myself and invest in my brand. So my friends at Cannabis and Tech magazine, they did an ad this volume or this edition, and then the next edition will be a full editorial and narrative on me, which I'm kind of super excited about.
Oh, I would be so excited.
Thank you.
This is fantastic. And we, and it's great to get the word out. And, we're here at the Cannabis Banking Symposium, and this is all about, obviously, banking, but it's about safe banking for the cannabis industry. And, all the talks here, the panels have been about how do we help all of these cannabis industries that are, more than 60% of them are still dealing with just cash. And we're going to get to what Jennifer does in helping all of these cannabis companies that are still all cash, and how she helps them deal with that situation. And then we have a lot of regulators here, and there's been panel discussions and everything. So that leads me into you. So that's what you do with your consulting practice, is that you are helping these cannabis companies deal with the cash, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what do you help them with? How do you help them navigate with all this cash? And then, of course, you've got those days where 420, where it's a big day where, they've got 10 times the sale that they would on a normal day. So now they've got more cash coming in the door, and so please take it away. How do you help these businesses?
Well, thank you for asking, because, next to the people and the product, the cash is the most expensive and riskiest thing in the business. So I love to educate about those complexities of cash and the cost to manage cash. And so what I like to do is mitigate the risk and reduce the cost of managing cash. I affectionately refer to it as the Cannabis Cash ecosystem. And that starts with the source, which is the cannabis-friendly financial institution. And when I began in the space back in 2017, when it legalized in Florida, which is where I'm from, so that's where I started. And I was managing financial institutions that were ready to bank cannabis. And when I got the no from those major armored transportation providers, the ones that are synonymous with the industry, no is not an option for my customers. It's how. How can I find that solution? So I organically developed this network of cannabis-friendly financial institutions, cannabis-friendly cash in transit providers, and then once the cash is on site, educating the employees and the managers and the owners about how to automate the cash touching process, how to digitize it, remove the manual component, and minimize the number of physical touch points in that cash process or that flow of cash that cycles through a dispensary. So sharing with them what they may not know they don't know, or if they worked in a traditional retail environment where they can accept digital transactions and digital payments and credit cards, you are working with that much more cash. And so being able to speak to that and build on my expertise and my experience and my passion, clearly, I was able to bring that to market and tie it up in a nice little gift box with a green bow and deploy that. And here I am. And I knew Cannabis Cash Consultants was the name of the company, but again, that personal brand of Cannabis Cash Queen is just like, I can tell you what I do, like I just did, but you're never going to forget Cannabis Cash Queen. And so it all fits.
No, that's so true. But I mean, what a way of just finding a niche. You know, here you are working in the cannabis industry, and all you want to do is find some transportation companies that will help these companies get the cash off-prem, and they won't do it.
They won't do it. Right. And so how do we do it? How do we make the cash touching process more efficient? And that's why I love conferences like this, the ACB, and this specialized curated group of people that speak the same language. They understand the challenges, and it's more people that have these conversations, normalize the industry, commercialize the industry. That's paving the way to really make movement and change for cannabis banking, access to cannabis banking, access to transportation, access to provisional credit for customers. So there's better cash position and visibility to where the cash is in your business. And then utilizing that cash with that provisional credit feature allows people to, without the cash being removed or decashed from property, still have access to that cash to make transactions for, you know, paying bills, paying vendors, payroll, etc. So it's quite the profound flow and ecosystem of the cannabis cash. And to your point, thank you for calling it out, being able to identify a lane for me in this really interesting space that is evolving. It's like a blank canvas that I get to really carve out and be a part of.
Yeah, it must be. It really must be. And then, you know, it just leads to just a million more questions, but you know, in what you found in that situation, I mean, you know, the one thing that we didn't really touch on today at all, and I didn't hear it throughout the conference at all, is counterfeit money. You know, and how prolific has it been in cannabis? Now, I know that you know, it's pretty easy to detect a counterfeit bill now these days, but you know, do you find a lot of counterfeit bills in cannabis?
Sure.
Okay.
Both the legacy cannabis and the regulated cannabis industry. And so what tools can you deploy inside of your operation that can help detect and avoid accepting that current counterfeit currency? So, you know, everyone should have a marker, right? The marker. That should be your first point of control or your first mitigation point. But my recommendation is deploying different sorts of technology, bill validators.
Yeah, they've got
at their point of sale station. Just a quick rapid verification of a bill. Now you could go a step further depending on your operation and the cash capacity and the cash, how much cash flows through your business. Maybe you want to invest in actual devices that are at front of the house, at the counter, versus just back of the house solutions.
Like the casino industry.
You got to go.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And to your point, those bill validators are made for the casino, right? Because where would the most counterfeit bills come through? A place such as not that they would come through the Santa Ana Star Casino, but I'm sure it does. And so,
well, it's where the most common place is where they're going to go and wash money. You know, they're going to put it in the machines. They're going to put in, you know, that's where they're going to put it in and then do the ticket out. And we all know it. I mean,
the gray area. We always try to stay ahead of the bad guys, right?
Yes.
In my days with those armored transportation providers, it's interesting who they tap to think ahead of the bad guys, right? What kind of mind wiring do you have to think so creatively to be ahead of those fraudsters and being ahead of how do you mitigate that?
Yeah, for sure. So there have been some really great technologies. I felt like they talked about here this week on some stuff for cash handling, you know, and I do believe that, you know, some of it has come out of the gaming and casino industry because I knew some of it, a little bit of it, but and I'm so glad to see that it's going into dispensaries and into those cannabis operations, even back of the house, you know, just from the virtual cash handling and stuff. And are you working with any of those technologies?
Absolutely. And I'm so grateful for the technology to have been tested in industries such as gaming, and a lot of technologies and devices were created and manufactured and designed for high cash intensive businesses such as casinos. So it was because of that high risk industry that really helped pave the way for cash management solutions for industries such as cannabis. And so to your point, technology is always improving, it's always enhancing. And so being able to make recommendations as to what size solution and what fit solution would be best for your dispensary, which may not be the same for the dispensary down the street and may not be the same for the MSO down the street.
That's true.
So I love going in and evaluating, maybe doing like time and motion studies. So how long does it take your staff to physically touch the process and the cash process from point of transaction with the customers all the way to deposit prep to go to the bank at the end of shift or the end of day, and really showing that ROI comes with time savings on labor, right? I can deploy a device that, might be $30,000 to $50,000 per location, but your ROI, you're going to get that back in sometimes less than 18 months, right? And the labor, so being able to show that ROI, show that cost savings, but also the security element, getting this cash off the streets, making sure the counterfeits are not in circulation. There's a whole process when you accept a counterfeit bill. And so that gets complex. And how are you managing your SOPs around that? And do you need to call in the feds to get that cash off? So there's just so many moving parts to it. It's fascinating. And each state's different. Each state is different.
That's true. Yeah. You're absolutely right on that. Jennifer, that is so fascinating. So you spend most of, I would say, is most of your time spent with your consulting company on the cash?
Yeah, I will say, so that's how I started in the space. Okay. And, as a one-woman show, as a one-woman entrepreneur, how do I expand my scope and reach? And you've kind of followed the breadcrumbs, right? Word of mouth. And I've been very busy in the Northeast with the New Jersey and New York markets. But in that journey, it's challenging in cannabis, as you know, and I'm sure you've heard with many of your interviews. And I was utilizing a platform called Cannabis Media. Do not be confused that with the name media in the name, it means that we are a publication or a news outlet or a digital media advertising company. The beautiful story about the Cannabis Media when they started in 2013. So in like cannabis years, that's like 100 dog years, right? They chose to put media in their name because in addition to the regulator data that they were getting from the states, which was like the foundation, the single source of truth that builds the platform, how do you get that enhanced information? So for me in my consulting, I was needing to call on the CFOs of those operations, the controllers, if they're like the MSOs, and if they're a mom and pop, like who is the owner and who is the accountant and who's managing the books and reconciling the cash. But those are the people that were making my decisions. And so what was beautiful about Cannabis Media is that it was built for lead generation and marketing and industry data. And so I was leveraging Cannabis Media in that capacity. And I'm a big believer in planting seeds and the way the universe happens. Not to sound so cliche, but it's true because when I was at MJBizcon a couple of years ago, I met the team in person. And in my true, enthusiastic, outgoing self, oh my goodness, I love Cannabis Media. I don't know what I would do without them. I owe them so much to my business. But they found out how I was utilizing the platform, that I spoke bank language, that I had a network of banks that I worked with, and that I spoke compliance. And that was an underutilization of the platform. And so essentially, I joined the team as their director of banking and compliance, which was so harmonious and complementary to what I was already doing in this space. And through that partnership with them, it's afforded me to come to these events and be with people that speak my bank language and promote the different functions of Cannabis Media. And so to your point, Tina, I over the last 2 years, I've had to find that healthy balance between not taking my foot off the gas with my consulting, but how can I add value to both and also find the time to dedicate to both? And final point to that is, where do I also leverage my time? Because those are the things that put the money, those are the things that put the food on the table for my family.
Sure.
Right?
Yes.
But the work is really done at the government level. So I'm affiliated with associations like Florida Cannabis Action Network.
Okay.
Grassroots, advocating for medical cannabis in Florida for 20 plus years. Wow. Gives me goosebumps because they are the ones leading the way for the Florida market. And so to be affiliated with FLCAN and doing the work at the state level has been it gives me goosebumps, a profound experience, because I love working in the field. I love working with operators, but it's the work at the state level and at the federal level is where the real stuff is, where the rubber meets the road.
That's where the decisions are finally going to get made.
And educating those folks folks who have such negative biases on what they don't know.
Right.
And bringing the professional element to this space, I get complimented by the FL Can team because I bring, through my experience, a level of legitimacy, professionalism, and the business component to the industry. And so advocating for that from that perspective has made a difference. And I love making a difference and helping. And the final association that I'm aligned with is the Cannabis Law, Accounting, and Business, CLAB for short, a business-centric cannabis networking organization that's been around for 9 years in Florida. And they really helped the Cannabis Cash Queen get her start in the space by doing local events, community events, do good, feel good things, philanthropy, but also business-centric activities that put me in the room with the people that were having those cannabis-related conversations, the people that were making those cannabis-related decisions. And so I really have so much affinity and love for those two associations in one company for helping being a part of my cannabis story.
This is so admirable because, I think that everybody in this industry needs to align themselves at least with one association. Okay. You have to be affiliated with one, but you really need to be in at least three because you have different tentacles. Okay. If you're working with a dispensary, you need to be tied to a dispensary association. You need to be tied to maybe MSOs. You really have to, because there's just so many tentacles in this industry. You've just described it so perfectly how those two associations helped you. And yet that's just in Florida. You could have all these other associations in other states because you travel and you've got work in other states. And it's just good advice that we'd like to pass on to the industry. I think
Absolutely.
that, just even as a banker, you can be tied to a credit union, you can be tied to the banking association, you can even be tied to a hospitality association. You can be tied to, so many different ones.
Absolutely.
So, kind of check that out. I mean,
Couldn't agree more.
it's just counsel that that I'd like to pass along too.
Thank you for that.
Piggybacking off of the great, words that you gave because it's important, But Jennifer, you have got so many amazing things going on. And just to wrap this up this morning, Jennifer gave a great breakfast about branding yourself to the ladies in cannabis, women in cannabis. So that was a great breakfast that we had. And we're not sharing the content on that one. That was ladies only.
Yes.
There was only one man allowed in the room, and that was the producer to take some photos. So we'll keep it at that, right?
He was the lucky one. That's for sure. Absolutely.
So anyway, as we wrap this up, we're just a few hours out from closing out the whole symposium, but it has been a great week and really great to meet you. And
Likewise.
Thank you for coming on with us. I'd love to have you on again.
I would love that.
After we go to these next tours, we're going on tour. Yes, we are.
I want to be part of the road show.
Yes.
Can I be part of I think we're a good show here. We should take this on the road.
We're going on a road show. We've got all these next Cannabis Banking platforms to go on and conferences and so forth. I'd love to jump on again
and if I could just
fall.
speak to that in the fall, please find me at PBC, Cannabis Payments, Banking and Compliance. I will be there.
Excellent.
Both a colleague that y'all just had on the interview she and I were both awarded last year for top cannabis banker and top cannabis business leader in the industry.
Oh,
and,
super. Delane?
She's amazing. Delane Gilbert.
Prism Bank. Fantastic. Miss
Absolutely.
Prism.
Woo, woo.
Mrs. Prism
Gotta
from
promote
Oklahoma
the ladies.
City.
Yes.
Top bankers. Fantastic.
So I think we're going to try to be the, 2-time reigning. So, but find us at PBC. And then I'm super excited to share that I was selected to speak at MJBizcon this year.
Okay. Everybody hear that. MJBizcon. We have speaker right here. Jennifer, look out for her, please, at MJBizcon.
On Tuesday, I think 3:15. And it's about separating yourself as an ancillary provider, right? Not getting lost in the crowd. And I was so honored to have been selected. So many applicants and so many people get denied over the years. I'm one of them. So I could not be more ecstatic. So all of the seeds that I've been planting these last several years in the space, it's lovely and such an honor and humbling to see them all starting to flower and prosper. And I couldn't be more grateful for this opportunity to share this microphone with you. Thank you,
You are going to be queen of Las Vegas.
Viva Las Vegas. I'm ready for it. Thank you.
Jennifer, thank you so much. And we will definitely see you at the next one, and we'll for sure see you in Las Vegas.
Yes, ma'am.
So thank you, everybody. And we'll go ahead and close this out. I'm Tina Tasaga, Cannabis X America.
Thank you.